Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the second of our January Q&As for the London Webfest 2021 season. I'm Saul Marin. I'm the Festival Director here at London Webfest. So today's panel is entitled International Directors. We're joined by our January official selections from our Best Director category. They're just some of the best talent on the festival circuit right now. Their work ranges from short films to web series and music videos. Now, I'll bring them in just a moment. And also remember, you can ask your own questions in our live chat. Just post your questions below and we will pose them to our panels, all the P's. But before we meet them, as always, let's first take a closer look at their work.
Petya, you're a long way from home.
Where is my friend, Avi? We came on the ship together.
About this friend of yours, Abby, you see, she owes me a lot of money.
Money? I had given all I had to get here.
Get her out.
I had nothing left to give.
Она начнет работать сегодня вечером.
I hate to tell you this, but Steve Jobs is dead.
But it wasn't the computers that killed him.
Do you know what date this is for us?
I didn't realise this was a date.
You! Picnic blanket, triple cream brie, wine, a sunset.
It's 5.
Δεν θέλω πια. Δεν μπορώ, δεν αντέχω άλλο. Θέλω να σταματήσει αυτό. Θέλω να είμαι φυσιολογική.
Δεν είσαι φυσιολογική. Κι ούτε θα γίνεις ποτέ.
Τι μου λες ρε Ορέστη, ότι έτσι θα συνεχίσουμε το υπόλοιπο της ζωής μας?
Okay, I just need a minute. No problem. Take a minute.
Hello, welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi.
It's Libby. You have literally just you've come in the back door. Libby wasn't here for the pre-talk, so she's literally joined and is now like, oh, I'm on screen. Fantastic.
I know.
No, great.
I'm so sorry.
It's a ridiculous time in the morning where you are, though, right? It's
not ridiculous. It's 8 a.m., but it's a long weekend here in Australia. So, and I'm out in the country, so I apologise if my internet completely kicks out. I've had to travel somewhere to find internet, which seems crazy, but that's the state of Australia's internet.
It's fantastic. I mean, you've got a gorgeous view in the background, so at least that's good.
Yeah, it's very cliche Aussie, so I'm bringing some culture.
Thank you so much for joining us all. This is our second, as I said before, the second of our Q&As for January. We were just overwhelmed with an amazing amount of talent. I don't think we're ever quite stop being shocked when we see just the phenomenal amount of work. And what I like about this panel the most is it's across the board. So we have short films, we have web series, and then Philippe here is also a music video, which you just saw at the end there. And it's amazing to see that one kind of skill set can be can be across the board so fantastically. I think we're just going to start off quite simply, which is have an introduction from each of you. Just tell us a bit about yourselves. Let's start with from my left to right. Kate from Narcoleap, tell us about you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kate Green. My series is called Narcoleap. And Libby, I feel you. I was on a ski mountain about 15 minutes ago. So I was like, oh my God, I gotta get home. So anyways, it's a sci-fi web series, Narcoleap, and it's about a young woman that has narcolepsy, and when she falls asleep, she leaps into other people. And throughout the series, you realize that the government is obviously trying to track her down and harness this power that she has.
Fantastic. Smaro, you next. Tell us about you.
Hello, I'm Smaro Anzalakopoulou. I'm from Greece. I'm the writer, producer, and director of Dirty Game. It's a crime thriller, you could say. about couple that going through sexual disorders.
Yeah, really pushing it to the extreme of what a couple can do. It's amazing to watch, but also quite haunting. Philippe, you are next on our list. Tell us about Love's Worst Nightmare.
Yeah, well, actually, Love's Worst Nightmare is about love situation Soa's already had. So it's basically the tragic side of a relationship. And well, actually, I'm the producer of the song too. So I wanted to communicate the tragic and the dark side you can relate to when you listen to the song. You think it's basically an EDM song, but when you see the video, you can see the dark side of the song actually.
It's interesting you say that. I'll bring that up a little bit later on because it is. I was certainly again used the term blown away when I'm like, wait, you've produced this track, but also you've directed this amazing piece as well. So I'd like to talk to you about that later on in the Q&A. Libby from Australia, tell us next about yourself.
Yes, so I'm the writer, producer, director of Loving Captivity, which is a 40-minute 6x6 web series about a couple who reconnect in lockdown, which in Melbourne, in the first lockdown in March, and they just without the ability to get intimate too quickly, they find themselves becoming intimate in a different way that proves much more long-lasting.
It's a really lovely piece, and it's amazing. What's come out of lockdown has been, and come out of COVID has been a lot more work that's based either specifically on COVID or what producers and directors have been able to make from, being locked down. But it had a completely fresh voice. It wasn't more of the same. It was something that just was a standalone piece that happened to be about two people, falling in love over webcams. And Christian,
it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, it really lovely. Christian, yourself.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm one of the writers, director for Coercion, and Coercion was based on a true story of one of the survivors that we intervened for as an organization called A21. And quite simply put, she was trafficked in a shipping container. She was going there for a promise of a better life, and then ended up in the sex trade. She then escaped, and then we see her getting some kind of normality back to her life.
It's again exactly amazingly well produced, amazingly well directed, but an overwhelming watch. Now, Christian was actually, along with Bruce McDonald, was the winner of our best short film from the December categories for Can You See Me? Stroke sex trafficking. It was another phenomenal work about the sex trade and sex trafficking. Rightfully a winner, but not an easy watch. But then I suppose that's the idea, is to leave an imprint in someone's brain so that it's lasting after they've watched it. Now we've met you all, I think probably the best, easiest question to start with is, how did you get started? Like, how have you all become directors and found yourself in this position? It's an easy question, right? I said it's easy, but it's easy for me to ask. That's the...
Should I go first? Or
whoever wants to jump in.
Okay. Well, I've been a producer for many years, and I've got my own production company, and I found myself always wanting to direct, but it was always kind of made out to be this like big scary thing. And I guess in my mind, the fear kind of stopped me from doing it, and I just turned 40, and I said, "Can I swear?" By the way.
No, go for it.
Okay. I turned 40, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm not gonna keep making other directors careers. I'm gonna work on my own." And I just jumped off the cliff, so to speak, and just did it and loved it. And it was like being a duck to water, and I've been doing it ever since. So fantastic.
And with Narco Leap, you say that you're in your second season now, right? It's no easy feat to not only do one episode or something, or a pilot or a short story, but to continue that as a director and have a vision. I think you downplay the skill set needed for that quite a bit. It's phenomenal work.
Thank you. It's an expensive show to make, and luckily in Canada we have some really great funding bodies available for web series producers. But yeah, I'd gotten the first half of the funding, and it took me almost a year to close the second half. But I was determined not to give money back.
And was that for the first series or for both?
Second series.
Oh, second series.
Yeah.
So the first series was just off your own bat.
No, that was there was a broadcaster here as well as a funding body, and then this season was Bell Fund and CMF, which is the Canadian Media Fund.
It does seem, with the Q&As we had before, it does seem that Canada is an amazing place to make short films and web series. There's money there to be offered to filmmakers, which is
never enough though.
No, but some kind of backing is amazing. Yeah. Anybody else who'd like to tell us about themselves, how they got started?
Yeah, I can go. Well, I'm a bit unusual in that, this is kind of a means to an end for me. I mean, I love the art. I love directing. It's a lot of fun. I love writing. But as you can probably tell, I mean, my films are mainly about human misery, but in the real sense that it's really happening. And I found myself on set with fantastic directors that I learned from, and I just thought, because I'm involved in some of the intricacies of what's happening to these women and men and children, it was just really easier for me to sort of get on board and learn to do it myself. So it's really a means to an end. I've worked in production. I used to be a musician, so I have some of the skills, and I've seen a lot. But like Kate, I decided, I'm going to jump into it myself, give it a go. And I've loved it. It's been so much fun. Really, it's like going to battle. It's really tough sometimes, especially when you're doing shoots in different countries, which most of them are. There's places like Bulgaria and Ukraine and South Africa, all over the place. And it's quite taxing, but it's been a super journey. But as I say, a means to an end.
So what is the connection, can I ask? Because obviously the two films that you've entered into London Web Fest have been specifically about sex trafficking and are tied to an organisation. How did that come about? Why the specific kind of genre that you're focused on?
Well, a bit about myself. I mean, I work for an organisation called A21, which is a human trafficking organisation. So we're in like 14 countries now. I've been working in this space for about 18 years. So I've seen it all. I've seen all the cases. We run national hotlines. We run cases with law enforcement. So we go through the prosecution process. We're doing the aftercare. And so, we know what's really happening, and it just became a necessity. I had a meeting here in London with Special Branch, and they were, we need to do something. We need to get the public behind what's really happening behind closed doors. Can you create a campaign? And I said, absolutely. And that was the one previously, Can You See Me, which is about 18 films contextualized all over the world. But it's really just to get people aware of what's going on, what domestic servitude looks like, what sex trafficking looks like, labor trafficking, online child sexual exploitation. We've covered them all. And so that's why you see me doing that.
I mean, it's again the kind of way with which you've undersold yourself, because from going for someone who's worked for an organization, worked for a charity, and then went, do you know what I'll do? I'll just direct this, because it's a standalone piece. It's a beautifully shot, gorgeous cinematography, like harrowing story telling and writing, but it grips you, both Coercion and Can You See Me? But you would never guess that that's from, you see charity films, and I'm talking with the past two judges. So Phil, who's watching Coercion this time, and Can You See Me just stuck so innately in Kristen's head from our December judge. Like, she still talks about it to this day. But you would never guess that that's a way of bringing people's attention, because it almost seemed in my head that it was something that had been made and then brought to a charity to say, hey, there's this that can bring awareness. But it really does show you what you can do. If you have the funding there, if you have a way of making your own videos rather than just give £2 a month kind of thing, it's how do you grab people's attention? So again, I think you've massively underplayed the talent from which working both sides of that story.
We were very lucky. I mean, we have a lot of great people involved. There's been just fantastic cinematographers involved, great staff. I mean, one of our, we connect with people just like you go to a place like Bulgaria, and you know, you don't realize the talent in terms of crew is just world class. You know, like our set designer, what's her name, Navina Georgievna. She's got a PhD in set design, and you know, you walk into a room, you think, oh my goodness, what are we going to do with this? Come back the next day, you have a quick chat with her, and it's transformed. You know, I mean, it's all about the people that you work with.
Definitely. I'll come back to that because it's a very good point. I'll come back to that later. Let's continue. How did you get started? Tell people at home. Whoever wants to jump in next.
I can.
Yeah, go for it, Libby.
Sorry, Smara. Look, this is the first time I've ever directed anything.
This running theme is fantastic because it's your official selections. You make it seem so easy. It's
Oh no. It's more. Mine was really out of necessity in that during COVID, I'm a writer by trade, so I write for soap operas in Australia and other TV shows and things. So that's kind of my bread and butter and what I truly do. But we wrote this kind of in a hot fever over a month in COVID, and of course we weren't allowed to have anyone in our flats or in our apartments. We had to have an extremely skeleton crew, and we were looking for a director. And then Lewis, my co-creator, kind of was like, "Well, why don't you just do it? I mean, you know the scripts, you know the characters. They're pretty." Based on us, you know, they're kind of versions of us, and so I just kind of did it. I was forced into it, really. So we had like late night tutorial sessions to learn how to be a director and to learn what shots were and all of that kind of stuff, and ended up just doing it.
Unbelievable.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it was it was pretty guerrilla filmmaking, but it was great, and it was such an experience. And I have been on sets a lot because of my writing experience, so I guess I've been learning by osmosis, you know,
and probably the best
for a while.
Probably the when you're facing that kind of steep learning curve, having a restricted set where it is just, you know, where it is just a contained environment, maybe hopefully helped a little bit, because you're not suddenly like, how do I shoot a gorgeous landscape, or how do I shoot, you know, like
put me in Bulgaria and I would have died, but I was in my own bedroom, and so that was fine, you know, like I could handle that. I'm not sure how I'd go with the next project, but we'll see.
Was that then filmed in your own apartment?
Yeah, so Ali, the female protagonist, was filmed in my flat with my daughter as her daughter.
Oh, really?
And yeah, well, because we couldn't hire any actors we just couldn't be around anyone, so we had to use what we had.
Your daughter's a natural talent. It's fantastic.
Oh, thanks. Don't tell her that, because she's a big head. And the rest of it, Joe's was filmed in Lewis, Lewis played Joe, and we filmed in his share house for the rest of it.
The connection with you saying you write for soaps makes sense, because it was driving me crazy who your lead actress was, and then I was like, it's Neighbours. There we go. That's
Yeah, so Christy's brilliant, and she's a very well-known theatre actress in Australia. She's really more known for that, but she had this kind of crazy stalker role on Neighbours, and I'd written for her, and so when I sent her the script, I think at least that my name got the foot in the door with her. You know, in her email, and she's such a talent. She's so brilliant.
Genuinely unbelievable that the two leads, something like that, it rests on, you know, it's make or break with who your two leads are when that's who you're focused on. And I think that's the strength of the whole piece, is obviously your work as well, but if they're not engaging, if they're not making you want them, you know, any good,
you want them to be together, right?
You want them to be together. But that kind of, for anyone who might not know, the UK and Australia, like the UK has this kind of strange love affair with Neighbours, any kind of Australian soap, and we just lap it up. So when you're watching something, you're like, how do I know? And that was fantastic to see. Smara, let's go on to you.
Okay, for me, it's I could say a romantic story, because as a child I loved cinema, so it all started from my love for cinema. And in my teenage years, I was watching about 5 movies a day or something. I was like a zombie in front of a TV or something, and cinema all the time. And I started reading about cinema, etc. And I found out that it was a way to express my thoughts, my feelings, and everything in me, anyway.
And is this your first work? Because
yeah.
I've had a cheeky Google about all of you, and I've read as much information as I can because, anybody who submits to the festival, you just and wows you want to know more about. And I was just, it's such a proficient work. There's such a style and a darkness and a kind of, when a film has a tone and manages to carry it throughout and keep your attention, especially, with such dark subject matter as a couple who are trying to push the boundaries of their sexual exploration almost. You would never know. You would never know at all. There seems to be a running theme in this Q&A of people who are directing or creating their first work. Amazing stuff. And Philippe, I mean, as you say, you are EDM producer. How did directing your own music video come about?
Sorry.
Apologies.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, go for it, Philippe. Go for it.
Okay. Well, actually, it was. I think it was a whole bunch of work. Because it was a personal project because it was based on a personal. Could I say a personal experience I had? So the production was already with my team was really intense because I always try to. Could I say to not take it too personally? To keep it. Just to keep it like a project, and on the other side there's the musical side, on the other side there's the film side. So I always tried also to keep the pressure on getting the right the rhythm is going with the images. So it was really I would say it was a 50-50 job between directing, music production. So I think it was like a whole stuff, but yeah.
Fantastic. So, I mean, moving on, where did you all get the inspiration for these films? So we talked with Christian that it's directly linked to your work. And with Libby, you were saying, obviously through COVID that you produced something, you wrote something that was very obviously immediate. For the rest of you, and including the two of you, where did the inspiration come to make a fully fledged film series, or in the case of Philippe, a music video? Where was that inspiration coming from?
Well, the inspiration was coming from my personal life. So, and I just wanted to get it right. So I just wanted to do myself, and it was a good experience. So I did a second trailer for another song too, and I think I'm gonna continue like that. So.
Fantastic. And Kate, you like to say something? Yeah,
sure. No, for me, I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and there's a lot of sci-fi television that happens out here, and I love sci-fi, and I really wanted to, like I said, I was looking to direct, and I when we first started, season 1 way back, I was looking for a short, and I actually ended up working with this writer. And I said, what I really want to do is I really want to make a sci-fi series, digital series. And I wanted it to be about a young woman in her 20s, just kind of coming of age and kind of finding her place in this world. And so, I think for a lot of women that, mirrors all of our experience trying to figure out love and life and relationships and all of that, family and everything. And then, of course, I thought, well, let's just give her something really weird that she has to deal with on top of that. So I guess it's a little bit of personal story inspiration.
And with there's a lot of action in it. It's a grand series. There's a large cast, a lot of action, and amazing quick cuts. How was that to kind of come to for the first time? In contrast to Libby's, Libby's is very much your piece is. We've got some interference. Where's this coming from?
Sorry. I'm not in an office.
Oh, there's just wildlife around you creating
the birds earlier.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the bird feeding. But in contrast to Libby, where it's kind of, very much a two-hander in a contained
Yeah.
environment. How is that, especially time-wise and budget-wise, when it comes to short films, which are notoriously underfunded? You know, same with web series. How did you find the pressure of filming?
Oh, yeah, no, it was intense. I mean, luckily, you know, we started with season 1, and I, you know, kind of cut my teeth on that. But you know, if you watch the very last episode, the very last scene, this is Kelsey, and she's saying goodbye to all of these people, and it's kind of like the whole two seasons of like, this is the climax. And I had the sun going down. I had 40 actors, SWAT teams, like stunt guys, the whole, like everything. And then I had about another 45 crew all standing around looking at me, waiting for me to show the blocking. I had Canada Geese, the sun, you know, they were all going home for the winter. And it was like, this is a nightmare. And it was like, and this last scene, it's a massive, massive scene. And of course you want to cut, you know, looks and cut it all together and get all your coverage and everything. But it was completely running out of time. So you improvise. I was like, okay, Jeff, my DP, he's amazing. I'm like, get the camera on your shoulder. We're doing this as a oneer. And I was like, oh my God, this is either going to ruin my career or it's going to turn out to be like this amazing moment. And luckily it did. The actors, they brought the performance. And it's great because the audience is like right there with her as she's going through this emotional moment. But with, the stunts and all of the logistics, it's a lot. And you've got to be on it. And if you can't, if things happen, you have to be able to improvise.
I mean, phenomenally well done, because action is one of the hardest things with which to be convincing, especially having a stunt coordinator with minimal budget, with minimal, you know, like how do you, and minimal time mainly, how do you make something believable? Well, and you get back to the basics too of filmmaking, and you know, sometimes you don't need all the fancy gadgets and tricks. You just, you know, get the meat and potatoes and get it together, and it looks great in the end. So Libby and Smaro, both of yours focus on relationships to a certain extent, you know, in very different ways. What was the inspiration behind that? I mean, obviously, Libby, you've written for I'm guessing love stories or, you know, like relationship stories in the past to a varying degree. Where did the inspiration come from both of your stories? Is it something personal? Is it something that's been, you know, discuss?
For sure, it's not personal. Sorry. It was the time that I was studying psychology, and I was amazed by the sexual disorders and all this stuff. So I wanted to make a movie about it. I tried to find the story, a way to see how these, if you can call them disorders, affect the couple's life, their relationships. So it was just this.
I mean, that's quite reassuring to know, because it is an intense story. So if you're like, actually, this was something based off my life, I'd be slightly scared right now. And Libby, yourself, where did your inspiration for the story come from?
It was all pretty personal. I had been dating someone at the start of last year, and I've had a few of those kinds of dating experiences where you think it's going really well, and then all of a sudden after the third date sleepover, it ends abruptly, and you're not really sure why. And so I kind of, it originally had a really rosy tone, and then I got dumped, and so then I called Lewis and I said, I've got this idea. I think I was just bragging that I had an idea. I wasn't really suggesting that we actually make it. And but then he was like, can we make it? Because we were both like our jobs had died, and so we had nothing to do. And we just ended up spending 3 hours on the phone together every day, just kind of dissecting our relationship and our friendship and our other relationships that we had that had failed, or that had started and then stopped, and why from a male and female perspective. And it was just really, it was like a therapy for each other, which was really exciting, and 3 hours a day, which felt very intense at times. But we kind of did that for a couple of weeks, and then we just started basically using our text messages as fodder for the scripts, and wrote them in a bit of a hot fever.
I mean, that's fantastic to have the content there, you know, like real life.
It was weird. And
yeah.
It was weird. And at one point, I think I remember Lewis was like, should we be talking on the phone? Because it felt very, we must have hit a gnarly, intimate, like personal anecdote. And I was like, but no, because we're writing it, text messaging each other at the moment. And there was, because of the text messaging, there was like a barrier for us. Like, it wasn't like we had to look at each other and be really vulnerable. We could just be vulnerable over text, which is what writers can do better. Yeah. So we were able to put all of our kind of wounds out there in this text message, and then really use them to inform the show. So it was a bit of a happy accident, to be honest.
I was kind of dubious about asking that question, because I'm like, if you were like, yeah, it was all just horrendous personal experience, I was hoping you were just going to go, no, it's fine. It's, you know, I just made it up as I went along. But it's nice to know that, I think the you know, again, testament to how well it's come out is because it's based off truth. It's based off, you know, everyone who's been through that dating system, who's ever gone, you know, text messages back and forth and ghosting, and then kind of like, you know,
it sucks.
Third date and then ghosting, like just, yeah.
Yeah, and we did, you know, we talked a lot about how we wanted it to end and whether you want it to be a really realistic ending. And I was like, oh, fuck no, not in COVID. Like, I want this to be a rosy, happy ending. I want people to go home and, you know.
Yeah, when he walks off with a bike, I'm like, he's coming back. Because if he doesn't, this is awful.
If he doesn't, he's an arsehole.
This is awful. Yeah, but it was like, he's knocking at the door. That's, you know, you can't.
Yeah, I wanted a cheesy rom-com ending for myself as much as my audience. So
I think rom-coms have helped the whole world through lockdown. You know, if you see the Netflix statistics, I'm sure rom-coms have just gone through the roof.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I kind of thought. That's all I wanted to watch. So I thought I'd put another one out into the world.
Well done, Christian. So obviously it's tied to your job, and that's how you started. But how do you find moving forward? Has this inspired you to then create other work, maybe not connected with A21, or even is it something that you want to continue with, creating more and producing more?
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for a number of years now, and look, I'm game. I mean, I'm game to produce something, but I think it's for me. I mean, I've just the only reason I've enjoyed the process. It's a really fun thing to do, but for me, it's about what the output is and what it's going to do and how it's going to affect people. And I think if there are other projects that are like that, then you know, that have a good effect, then I'm all in, because then it just that's just what switches me on. That's all. But yeah, I don't know yet. To be honest, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm a bit of a one-trick pony, really. They're all very, very similar in that.
Well, no, I was surprised, because obviously your official selection for this month and a winner from last month, but and yes, they are linked in their
subject.
Yeah, but very contrasting films, and very, I think when there's a style involved, both of them have their own vision and both of them have their own style to them. And you could, I suppose, offhandedly just go, yes, it's the same director who's made another piece about sex trafficking, but in no way does it feel like that. You know, it's not a repetition of what you've done before. It's just telling the same story in another harrowing, oh God, let's get to the end because please let them be all right kind of way. You know, it's had us all on the edge of our seats in a completely new style. But amazing to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah. I mean, I love the art of it. I love to be able to create something that inspires people and that looks good and feels good. And I'm saying I'm a one-trick pony, but I want it to feel real with whatever's happening with that individual. So I'll take my inspiration from the individual or the individuals that we're creating a film about, and they're all very different. You know, I mean, what we did in Dominican Republic, which is actually representing Central America, is a very different flavor to Ukrainian, Bulgarian, Romanian. It's so different. It couldn't be more different. So it's, we have the color of not only, the kind of people that are being trafficked, the contextualization of what we're following and what we're telling a story about, but you've got the locations and the places, and it's very easy to make something feel different because they are quite different. It's such a different contextualization. So yeah, we have a few more to go. Might be submitting another one to you.
I'm both excited and also the hairs on my back of my neck have just gone, oh, it's so intense. Both.
Well, the funny thing is, those films, I mean, they are, if I tried to, when I started making them, I was making them really true to life, and you can't watch them because, like when the girl gets beaten up, she's hit so hard, her eyeballs fall out, literally fall out and rest on her cheek. That's what happened in real life. And she had broken ribs, and it just, you couldn't watch it. And the point is, we want people to watch it so they can be aware. But if we really went there, no one will be able to watch it.
That's interesting to see the reality from what you're watching, thinking this is so intensely real and this is so graphic, when in actual fact, to know that it's a long way off from the actual reality. That is intense. Moving on, speaking of intense, Smaro, we have a question that's come up. People seem to still want to know where you got your inspiration from your film from. This is
okay.
Yeah, again, quite a dark, intense story. A feeling of one couple's very personal inner lives. Is it something that you were inspired by previous stories that you've seen, or was it just a nugget of a thought that you've developed?
No, it was my thought. I thought that I developed it, just like you said. I love dark films. My favorite actor is David Lynch, so you can understand all the background I have in cinema. So this is it, I think.
I mean, this literally someone who's obviously seen it was like, I need to know more. But we'll leave it at that. So all of you come from a different background, obviously, with what you're trying to, as filmmakers, push. From A21 with Christian, Philippe, you've got both your music side and the production side as well, and then the short films and web series. How do you think kind of the advent of streaming platforms, of social media, of basically online, what are the positives and the negatives you can see from that? Trying to pitch your film, getting your work seen. It'll be interesting to know from each side of the panel how that's affected you positively and negatively.
Sorry, of getting your work out online, do you?
Online, so of garnering an audience there's a current trend of the Netflix of short films. You've got All Prime TV and these services that are trying to replicate Netflix, so to speak, but for the short film and web series categories. How have you found it with putting your work online, with being part of online festivals, with just as a whole? How have you found marketing your films and your music and your series? It's a big question. I'm sorry.
There's a lot. I mean, we had a discoverability assessment or market strategy done so that we could reach our audience and find them. And I think that's one of the bonuses of getting your work online, is that you are able to build an audience and connect directly with your audience. And quite frankly, I mean, Narcolep's been seen by a lot of people, and I don't know. I mean, if it was a traditional festival pre-COVID, you can fill up a theater of maybe 100 people, and that, but having your work online, hundreds of thousands of people can see it. And also, it's a great way for me personally as a producer to test my concept. It's a proof of concept that, I mean, Narcolep right now is being adapted as a television series. So, it's a great stepping stone. And I actually, I mean, in terms of the COVID part of like virtual festivals, I mean, this is wonderful to meet international directors that, we would never have met otherwise. I mean, I couldn't have afforded to, or had the time maybe to go to London or whatever. But this is great. So there's a connectivity, I think, that happens online, both with your audiences and filmmakers. And I think, was that kind of the gist of what you were?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the broadness of the question comes from the fact that all of you work in very different, there's not just short films and web series, but also music videos. And in the case of Christian, working in short film, but it's also connected to a completely different style of work as well. So I think it's quite a broad question just to kind of cast out there, to find out how specifically each of your experiences in online has been, how each of your experiences, maybe some people have put their work onto online platforms that are monetized. Some people are just there to gain laurels, to then gain attraction. I suppose it was a broad question just to find out what hit that nerve in each of you to go, okay, here's a response. So yeah, it was perfect, Kate. Perfect. Anybody else?
I can. This is the first time I've created a web series, and I don't necessarily watch that many web series. I think I'm kind of out of the target market, to be honest. But so creating a show for people like myself in my kind of target audience was really like and a web series, because I know me and my friends don't necessarily watch web series. So that was part of our marketing strategy. And Screen Australia, who helped fund the series, were really great about kind of pushing us to use Facebook as a platform, which was really weird for Lewis and I because we'd kind of given up on Facebook. But it works really well to get that over 30 audience. They're all still on there, and it's now a much easier platform to kind of put web series and videos and all that kind of stuff up there. Whereas like I don't really go to YouTube. It's not kind of a place that I sit in all the time. So we kind of used a combo of Instagram and Facebook to drive people to our Facebook page, and making it free meant that everyone around the world could watch it at a time, and we've had hundreds of thousands of people watch it, which is wild coming from Australia, because I see the numbers sometimes on Neighbours episodes that I've written, and it's like maybe 100,000 people watched it, like sometimes 80,000, and you're like, wow, I've had more people watch my little show than a Neighbours ep, which is crazy.
It is strange to see the kind of the reality of TV numbers nowadays, of something, a system that's stuck in the olden days almost, compared with successful web series, successful short films, where that can range from 100,000 all the way up to millions, which, especially when you talk about UK TV, it's been a long time since TV shows have hit those millions and millions, tens of millions figures. It's quite funny. We had Trish on, who, I don't know if you've seen, it's an Australian web series called 30, which seems, as soon as you said there's not many, I'm like, that seems like the perfect demographic for you, female in the 30s, Australian made, incredibly successful, but also her first project, her first web series that she's created. So anybody
There's definitely more coming out. There's definitely more coming out for my kind of that demographic now. But for me, I just had no idea. And so figuring out the marketing strategy was a huge effort for us, but really rewarding as well.
It is a big learning curve. As you say, I think everyone comes across a form of, a platform like Facebook or Instagram, or especially TikTok being, the newest thing. Yeah. If it's not something you're aware of, how do you overcome that? Like, how do you use that to your advantage when you have something you've created that you want to put out there? Philippe, talking about kind of marketing something completely different, how have you found marketing your music and marketing your videos as well? How does that work for you?
Well, actually, I first launched my single, so I had a traditional marketing strategy for my musical product, and so finally the video was an addition to that, and so I was on social media, and I just found out that through film festivals I could reach a broader audience, and to test how conveying emotion through video clip would affect people, and I would get positive or negative returns. So I was overwhelmed by the results. So I'm trying to go to broaden my specs because I'm always doing different kind of projects. So I always try to figure out new product placement opportunities or broaden my strategy rather than having a classical music business strategy for my product.
So how much of your work would you say, how much of your viewership or your listenership comes from online, would you say?
Oh, I would say 80% maybe.
It does seem that like old style of getting music out there seems almost archaic now. You know, the idea of buying a physical product, the idea of something that isn't just instantly available on Spotify, isn't instantly available on YouTube or on your phone. How you would survive as a musician in that outside of that world seems, you know, almost impossible in this day and age.
Yeah, of course, you need to have a ready consumer product that's available everywhere. And you need. What's difficult is due to the incredible amount of different kind of artists that all want to be known or place their product or have a successful project. It's harder there to find strategies that lead to success. So that's an important point to find alternative strategies.
So we've just had another question come through from audience member Luke Dickinson. For the first-time directors, which it seems like is pretty much everybody here, what was the most interesting, surprising, or enjoyable aspect of making your work? Also, with a gorgeous tone at the end of my question, that made me feel wonderful. So yeah, anyone who wants to jump in, what was the most interesting, surprising, or enjoyable aspect of your work, of working for the first time?
Well, I can continue if that's okay.
Yeah, go.
Well, for me, the most surprising and positive aspect was that I got positive feedback on film festivals. So I was really happy about that. That my message got through, and that was really interesting to see that the conveyed emotion could touch people. So that's basically because from the music and the video perspective, I could create some kind of bridge between both. So it was really surprising, and I was really overwhelmed by the response. Thank you for selecting me.
That's great news. I mean, your work speaks for itself. It's why you're an official selection. Anybody else? What was the most enjoyable part of first-time directing?
I was going to say, I usually am obviously stuck at home writing by myself. And so just being on set with the crew, watching your stuff come to life was incredibly rewarding. And then seeing it, I kind of didn't know what to expect in the editing process. But the fact that like the directing kind of continued into that second storytelling, in the edit room with my brilliant editor, and my co-creator, like it kind of just extended the experience of directing in a way that I just hadn't thought about in that kind of second story way. And so I just really enjoyed that, and just being holding on to the project for far longer than you do when you write a script. You kind of do your drafts and your polishes, and then it's like, see you later, it's not mine anymore. So that was really great.
His post-production is definitely something I think is a shock to everybody first time, going, oh, you finished the last day on set and you think that's great. And in actual fact, the amount of work that is left,
so much.
How you shape your story. We were talking to Phil Lee, who's our guest judge for this month, as well as the sound design winners from last month, Christian Elliott, somebody from Can You See Me? And it was just the amount of work involved from the Foley artist, from the sound designer. It just is just a whole bunch of key talent that's still left to be done after the film was wrapped. Anybody else? What were you intrigued by? What was surprising? What was enjoyable? What was interesting?
Well, I guess that it wasn't very enjoyable at the time, but I suppose it's interesting. Is that one of the things that are in all of these films is a bad guy. So the perpetrator. It's actually really hard to write for a perpetrator give the guy the lines, and it never sounds like you imagined it in your mind, because actually playing a bad guy, I didn't realize how hard it was to get that and make it feel real. Almost nearly every time, it feels really on the nose and difficult and cheesy. And so I suppose the interesting thing for me was that just, I approached, one of our perpetrators and gave him this set of lines, and he did it. And he was a theater actor. And it was and I won't say which film, but it was very, very big and huge. And I was like, my goodness, what do I do with this? Because it's like, I nearly ran out of the room laughing, to be honest with you. Anyway, we came back in, we rewrote it, and it just, just by making the whole performance smaller and just sort of coaching him through that process, I was not only intrigued, it was a big challenge for me at the time. So I thought, how are we going to get through this? But then seeing the end result, from going from something that was a seemingly disaster to something that then actually looked really quite convincing, I found that process really, really interesting and intriguing. So yeah, it wasn't enjoyable, but we got through it, and the results were good.
Bad guys are a fine line. You can have the big Hollywood, die-hard version of a German bad guy, but actually a believable, real-world, real-life situation. It's a very fine line for an actor. I can understand that, but to make it compelling and believable, and not make you want to leave the room laughing, I think is a very difficult thing indeed. Anybody else?
Samara, you want
to? Okay. It was that so many people were walking about my idea and my inspiration, I was amazed in the way that they fitted my spirit,
Lovely. So we have, obviously, when it comes to film festivals, you have a large array from brand new directors, we have student categories now as well. For people who are just starting out in filmmaking, for people who are just starting out making their first work, what would be some good advice? The things that you learned that you didn't know until that problem hit, until you had to overcome that specific 9 a.m. on day 2, where you're like, I don't know how we get past this. Is there any bit of advice that you could give to people who are starting out?
Yeah, I think for me, never underestimate how soon you need to be. If you've got visual effects happening in your film or whatever, you need to be calling your VFX supervisor and your producers like right away and having those conversations before you even start rolling the camera. There's a massive collaboration that needs to happen, and that's definitely something I've picked up along the way for sure.
Libby, what about yourself?
I would say try and surround yourself with people who are really good at things that you're really bad at, which is what I did, or that have skills that you don't. And then also, I guess on the set, be prepared for things to take far longer than you expect them to, and to be able to, we modified script. I cut my daughter out of scene, which was, a horrific thing to do to my own kid, which caused all manner of drama. But you have to kind of do what's best for the crew and the story and make it happen. And ultimately, it always ends up better because, I don't know, being succinct and economic really helps sometimes. But certainly the main number one is, surround yourself with people who are hard workers, but who are really good at stuff that you don't know how to do, and then they teach you and you teach them.
I think that is a great bit of advice. It sounds so self-deprecating when you say it, but I think anybody who's successful at their job is that saying, I just get people who are amazingly talented, surround us, and then they make you look better because of it. It underplays your own talent, but it is definitely true, because you have a team of people who are all hopefully working towards the same end goal.
Absolutely. And just being kind to, trying to get to know everyone and be kind to everyone, I think has made this a total joy to work on, as opposed to a nightmare.
Yeah.
When they can be.
Yeah, I agree with that. Christian, what about yourself?
Much like Libby, having great people. I mean, it's a combination for me of a lot of preparation, having alternative ideas, if because you just never know what's going to happen. In my case, I'll meet actors for the first time and then we'll shoot that day. So I've got to have a plan A, B, and a C in my head. But a great assistant director is like gold.
Yeah. Oh Lord, yeah.
Without that, I don't know about you guys, but I can't do it on my own. I have to bounce the ideas off people. I like to collaborate, and going in with those options is so important. And the preparation is everything. But I like what Libby said about kindness, because I've been on sets where directors can turn into a bit of a Rottweiler sometimes, and I think it's really important to just always keep it together and just really be a great example and not lose it, and always keep your cool if you can, and just be kind. And I tell you what, it makes a huge difference.
Lovely. Smara, yourself?
For me, the most important thing was to have a good communication with the first assistant director, as Christian said, and of course the director of photography. I think this relationship between the director of photography and the director is the most important thing in film.
It is amazing. I think for anybody who doesn't work in film, who just, you presume there's a director and that's it. But the person who shapes how things are, like shapes the feel of the whole film, your DOP is just, could never be underplayed. Like the amount of work that they're, when everybody else is off doing little bits and pieces or off for lunch, they're still shaping the next scene. They're still, working out how that's framed. I think that's a great bit of advice. And Philippe, yourself?
Yeah, I would say, try to stay kind of respectful immediately. Even if you're under pressure, I try to stay professional and just keep respecting people and try to stick the team together so that we can move forward together to the end goal.
Amazing. I mean, we are quickly running out of time here, and I have not even, the tip of the iceberg of questions. So it's something I always want to know from people who I respect, and from, filmmakers, directors. I want to know the kind of the simpler stuff. So I'm going to finish on quite a simple question, which is, what's one of your favorite films? Like, give a bit of advice to people out there. What is one of your favorite films? Because I love that.
Well, I'll go if nobody else. I mean, I have a lot. It's hard because I've got a lot of favorite films, but I really do love Forrest Gump. And I think it's about the weaving of the story and how the story is woven together over time, and it's a love story too. It's a nice, I don't know, Forrest Gump. That's my pick.
It's a good thing. I think that's the thing. You want to be able to give this answer like, the seventh seal. Or
I know, like some like, oh
my God, the amount of times I've seen The Proposal is shocking.
I don't know.
Anybody else? A bit of a kind of a recommendation for people at home.
Well, I think The Proposal is an excellent film, and I have also watched it about 100 times, Saul, and it's completely underrated. And that scene where they end up naked together and then fall, just comedy gold.
It's funny and sexy at the same time. I'm like, you've done well.
Totally.
Betty White in it. So I'm like, what more do you want?
And Alaska, hello.
Yeah.
I would say my biggest inspiration for this film in particular, I can't answer the number one film, but for this, it's definitely When Harry Met Sally. And just the dialogue in that film is still so superlative, and they're so engaging and warm, and of course you know what's going to happen, but it doesn't matter because you just want to watch the journey. And I think that was the biggest thing for me. That's the biggest thing for me ever writing a relationship, is as long as they're engaging, even if you know the formula, you want to keep watching them to see how they navigate that.
I watched that again recently, and I was like, when did Billy Crystal become attractive? When did this happen? And it'd obviously been so many years. I'm like, just a young version of Billy Crystal. I'm like, he's quite a handsome man. But
he's not. It's not like he's Ryan Reynolds.
No,
he's not.
But
and that's what I think is so amazing about it. Like in '89, that wasn't. You didn't need to be a Ryan Reynolds, and you certainly didn't need to be as cut as Sandra Bullock in The Proposal. But but I just love that film so much. I just think it's so well done, the ups and downs of their lives and their insecurities, and their split screen stuff was a bit of an inspiration for us as well. So yeah, I would say.
I mean, I definitely think you've achieved what you've set out to do, because that feeling of funny and charming and affable whilst massively flawed, and like there's, especially from your male lead, that's most definitely there. I think your inspiration has come across. Anybody else, like, just before we finish, doesn't even have to be the number one film, just something you'd recommend our audience to watch after they watch this?
Okay, this is an easy question for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of David Lynch. I love him. So my favorite ever film is Lost Highway. I think it's genius. It's about a psychological disorder.
Mm-hmm.
The film is the perfect circle. You can watch it forever, And all this darkness, all this, he put you in his own world, like a nightmare or something. So for me, this is it. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Christian or Philippe, can I get a recommendation for you?
Okay, it's funny because there's so many good films, but I don't know why I'm thinking about this film, but it was when I was a kid. I watched Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, Richard Dreyfuss.
So inspired by it, and I things like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and the Reservoir Dogs and Lost in Translation, Shawshank Redemption, that kind of thing comes to mind immediately, just because they all had just incredible performances throughout, which is riveting. And I could go on. There's so many.
I love how the simplest question in my head is like, everybody else is like, oh God, how do I answer this? Let's talk about funding. How do we talk about that? And Philippe, finally with you, do you have a recommendation?
Oh, there's so many good films out there. I was thinking, what am I going to say? But their series, maybe The Bridge, Scandinavian production, and Butterfly Effect. There are so many good ones. I don't know which one.
No, fantastic. Just something, light-hearted to end on. That has been, I'd say, an hour that has just flown by. I could ask you twice as many questions. Again, I just want to thank you so much for being here. If you want to stick around, I'll talk to you back in the green room in just a moment. For everybody, now that you watching at home, now that you've got to know our directors a bit better, I think it's only fitting that we re-show the clips from the start.
You're a long way from home.
Where is my friend, Avi? We came on the ship together.
About this friend of yours, Abby, you see, she owes me a lot of money.
Money? I had given all I had to get here.
Get her out.
I had nothing left to give.
Она начнет работать сегодня вечером.
I hate to tell you this, but Steve Jobs is dead.
But it wasn't the computers that killed him.
Do you know what date this is for us?
I didn't realize this was a date.
You! Picnic blanket, triple cream brie, wine, a sunset.
It's 5.
Δεν θέλω πια. Δεν μπορώ, δεν αντέχω άλλο. Θέλω να σταματήσει αυτό. Θέλω να είμαι φυσιολογική.
Δεν είσαι φυσιολογική. Κι ούτε θα γίνεις ποτέ.
Τι μου λες ρε Ορέστη, ότι έτσι θα συνεχίσουμε το υπόλοιπο της ζωής μας?
Okay, I just need a minute. No problem. Take a minute.
Thank you so much to everyone who joined us. I don't know about you, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself. As I said before, I could be here for another hour at least, just picking the brains of our official selections. We'll be back again next month with a whole new round of Q&As. If you haven't seen yesterday's Q&A, it was about sound design in film, featuring our guest judge and Hollywood sound designer Phil Lee, as well as 2 of last month's sound design winners. Thank you so much for being a part of this. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself. I hope you have as well. If you have a short film, a web series, a music video, dance video, or animation, do not forget that you can submit to the London Web Fest at filmfreeway.com/London Web Fest. Until next time, take care. And hopefully the next time you see me, my lockdown beard will be even larger. Bye-bye.